Laundry Basket Liturgy, a quiet corner for the Jesus-loving mother, seeking to embody shalom in the midst of her real, ordinary, beautiful calling. I am Rachel Alaya, your host and the founder of the Kingdom Mother. Today's episode is part of our second season, the Quotidian Mysteries, a season exploring the sacred mystery hidden within ordinary life. And today, we're talking about margin. Not the space that somehow magically appears once everything's done, but the space we learn to protect in the middle of unfinished things. So wherever you are right now, driving, walking, folding laundry, or perhaps moving quickly from one task to another, pause with me. Take a slow breath in and a longer breath out. Let yourself arrive. A prayer to open. Lord, teach me not to undervalue the preciousness of a pause. Quiet my need to fill every empty space. Help me become available to you again. Give me eyes to recognize your presence in the margins. Amen. Come away by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while. Mark chapter 6, verse 31. These words come from Jesus himself. And I think what strikes me most when he says them is that he speaks these words not after the disciples are completely burnt out, not after a breakdown, not after complete exhaustion, but he speaks them to his disciples before any of that. Jesus notices their pace, their potential depletion, their constant activity, and his response, his invitation is simple. Come away. He doesn't ask them to work harder or manage their time better or be more efficient. He says, come away, rest a while, create space, come to the margin. I think as a mother, we might often think the greatest challenge of spiritual life is finding more time, which, if you are like me, you're maybe always looking for that. But perhaps the deeper challenge for us is learning to pay attention. Because the truth is, most of us as mothers live within a constant flow of activity, right? We have many things to do, and we can't necessarily shelve those things, right? Like people need to eat, clothes need to be washed, children need to be educated, conversations need to be had, errands need to be run, right? And so the question isn't necessarily about whether life is full or maybe too full, but rather, are we present within it? Because there's a difference between a full life and a filled life. A full life contains responsibilities, relationships, meaningful work, right? And yet a filled life tends to leave no room for silence, for reflection, for wonder, for waiting, or for prayer. And many of us have forgotten how to inhabit spaces where maybe nothing obvious is happening. Which is interesting, right? Because much of life is lived precisely there. Not in the breakthrough or the big encounter or the mountaintop experience, but in the ordinary spaces between things. The waiting room, the school pickup line, the sink full of dishes, the long afternoon, the ordinary weekday, the season that feels repetitive. The place where nothing seems to be happening. Kathleen Norris writes in her book, The Quotidian Mysteries, "And it always seems that just when daily life seems most unbearable, stretching out before me like a prison sentence, when I seem most dead inside, that what had seemed like dead time was actually a period of gestation." Yes, what a remarkable reflection, right? Dead time and gestation. Because gestation reminds us that not all growth is visible. Seeds, they germinate underground. We can't see them. Babies, they grow in hidden places. Roots deepen long before fruit ever appears. And spiritual formation often unfolds the same way. So the world may value visible progress, movement, results, something to show for our efforts. But God often works beneath the surface of our awareness, slowly, quietly, patiently. Sometimes that season that feels stagnant is actually a season of preparation. Sometimes the waiting is not wasted. Sometimes what appears to be empty space is actually holy ground. And perhaps this is why dead time feels so difficult. Because stillness exposes us. Waiting exposes us. Silence does too. The moment that nothing obvious is happening, don't we suddenly become really aware of ourselves again? Our thoughts, our worries, our uncertainties, our boredom, our restlessness, our sin. So we usually and instinctively reach for something to fill the space. Not because we're lazy, no, nor because we're failing, but because being that present can feel quite vulnerable, especially in a culture and especially in a body that has been trained to avoid discomfort, whose natural inclination is to avoid it. And I think this is where true rest and escapism can begin to part ways. because many of us are exhausted, let's face it. But rather than actually resting, we distract ourselves. We scroll, we binge, we consume, we seek stimulation. And sure, while these things may temporarily soothe our discomfort, do they actually restore us? Kathleen Norris writes, "If they are wise, they treasure the rare moments of solitude and silence that come their way, and use them not to escape. Instead, they listen for a sign of God's presence, and they open their hearts towards prayer." I think she's speaking to us. She's speaking to me, at least. Asking me to not escape, but to pay attention. To not distract myself, but to be available. And to not fill the spaces, but receive God's presence within them. And I think this is why margin matters. Not because we as mothers have abundant free time. Most of us don't. And also, not because God only meets us in quiet places. He does not. But because margin creates availability. The physician, researcher, theologian Richard Swenson writes in his book on margin. He says, actually, margin is not a spiritual necessity, but availability is. Availability. And I think this might be the heart of this whole conversation. God is always present. The question is not whether He is available. The question is whether we are. Margin is simply the willingness to leave a little space unfilled, a little room for wonder, for prayer, for noticing. Not because something dramatic might happen, but because God is already here. And attentiveness is what helps us to recognize Him. Something else strikes me about Jesus, about His life and reading about Him in the Gospels. He regularly moved towards margins. Desert places, mountaintops, early mornings, solitary spaces. Places where attentiveness could flourish. And I don't think He was doing this to escape. I think He was doing this because He was committed to remaining connected to the Father. So His movement towards the margins was not an interruption to His ministry. They were really part of His ministry. And perhaps the same is true for us. So the pauses, the waiting, the spaces between things, they're not wasted moments. They're invitations. Invitations to remember. Invitations to notice. Invitations to return. Today, I invite you to choose one ordinary task. Maybe for you it's washing dishes or driving, folding laundry, taking a walk. And do it without input. So no music, no podcast. Ironic, right? No audiobook, no phone, just the task and your own presence. And notice what arises. Discomfort, restlessness, boredom, peace, curiosity. Whatever you notice, simply notice. And maybe quietly whisper, God is here too. Allow the space to remain unfilled. The domestic liturgy I give you this week is throughout the day, whenever you encounter a pause, maybe you're waiting for water to boil, or sitting in line, standing at the sink, waiting for a website to load, although that's a little less often these days. Go ahead and whisper, I do not need to fill every space. I do not need to fill every space. Let the pause become prayer, and let the margin become an invitation. And now, beloved Mother, may you discover the grace hidden in empty spaces. May you stop fearing silence. May you learn to recognize that what appears unproductive may actually be holy. May God meet you in the waiting. May He nurture hidden growth during seasons that seem barren. May your attention return to the one who has been present all along. And may the margins of your life become places of communion, wonder, and quiet transformation. Go in peace. This has been the Laundry Basket Liturgy. If this episode blessed you, would you consider sharing it with another mama? You can also support this podcast by subscribing or leaving a review on your preferred podcast streaming platform. To explore all current offerings and available discipleship opportunities, soul-tending resources, and gospel-shaped nervous system support, head on over to the Kingdom Mother Substack. Over there, you can also subscribe to receive future episodes and written devotionals straight to your inbox. And you'll receive some free gifts when you do. Over there, I've also just launched the Kingdom Mother Substack community for paid subscribers. If you choose to become a monthly donor, you'll receive a private monthly podcast, a continuing education book club, and additional practical written resources on themes like rest, embodied awareness, renewing the mind, community, beauty, truth, and goodness. So if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, I'm sure you'll value being a part of the community there. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being faithful. And thank you for making space for the sacred in the middle of the ordinary. God bless and have a beautiful week.